Okay, as you already know, video games have been around for a very, very long time. And what I'm going to argue in this talk is that those 8-bit retro video games of the late 70s and early 80s are coming back to style today. So I'm going to call this the 8-bit retro revival. And to begin, we have to talk about what 8-bit actually is. So why do we call it 8-bit? Well, very simply put, computers and arcade games of the late 70s and early 80s had CPUs that could only process 8 binary bits at one time, so we call machines from that time period 8-bit. It's better than calling them archaic. And the graphics that those machines could do were blocky, pixelated graphics. That's the maximum they really could do. So we call them 8-bit graphics. 8-bit really, though, is a time period. It's the time from the late 70s to, say, I don't know, the mid-80s, where we had very primitive computing and video games. And if you look at the last 3 decades from, say, 1978, the introduction of Space Invaders, which popularized video games worldwide and chewed up 8 billion quarters in a couple years, all the way to games from recent times like Skyrim and Halo that have great graphics, you'll notice that year after year the graphics have been getting better and better because game studios know that guarantees sales. But what about today? We've got games that don't follow that mold. So why is that? Well, one of the reasons is we have more games and more game platforms than ever before. You can play games in your smartphone, you can play games in your computer, you can play games on a ton of different consoles. Another reason is that anyone can make games today. You don't have to go to like a AAA publisher like Ubisoft or EA, knock on the door and say, hey, I've got a great game idea, because they're going to say, get lost, kid, we have great ideas too, and they make money. That's what you had to do 20 years ago if you want to make a game. Today, you can just make the game yourself and publish it on an app store or Steam and get it worldwide very, very quickly across the internet. These two guys made games, Phil Fish, Edmund McMillan from Fez and Super Meat Boy. Phil Fish made Fez, and Edmund McMillan and his friend Tommy made Super Meat Boy. Great 8-bit graphics there, guys. And when people buy those games and love those games, what they're really saying is that awesome gameplay, great gameplay trumps good graphics. And that's true of some of the best games today, like Minecraft. Awesome game, not necessarily very realistic graphics. That's all we had in the 1980s. We didn't have great graphics, so we had to rely on addicting gameplay to make a really good game. And there were some fantastic games from that time period. Pac-Man and Galaga are still very popular today. You can play them on iPhone or iPad or any mobile device or PC or consoles. Younger generations know what they are. I can go on with several other vintage titles from that time period too. The retro movement is definitely back, and those games had very addicting gameplay. They were very easy to learn. Nolan Bushnell, who founded Atari, once said that good games should be easy to learn and hard to master. They should reward the first quarter and the 100th quarter. And that's really true of the best games on mobile platforms today, on console platforms today, and even on web platforms today too. So if you look at those games that have come out in the last little while, you'll notice that they don't have the greatest graphics, but they have fantastic, addictive, easy-to-learn gameplay. And so 8-bit really is back. If you find a game that's easy to learn, has great addictive gameplay, but not necessarily the greatest graphics, that's an 8-bit inspired game. 8-bit's also seen as an art form. You can go to the I Am 8-Bit Art Gallery in Los Angeles, or you can find chiptune artists all around the world that make great music, retro music, using 8-bit sound chips, like Jeff the World in the lower left-hand corner playing on a Game Boy. And you can even go to barcades. They're popping up all over the place where you can play video games for a quarter, retro awesome video games for a quarter. They make their money off the drinks. Just watch out for the hipsters. But of course, younger generations are all playing some of these great retro games, whether it's on a Super NES or Nintendo 64, or even some of the old arcade games through MAME, or even remastered on various platforms today like the iPad, because those games were so great. They had great addictive gameplay. And a lot of the newer games that are coming out are really following that mold.